Disney is not the happiest place on earth for 7,000 laid off employees as company begins cuts. Get woke. What happens? You go broke. Well, let's be honest. This is a fraction of Disney's workforce, but Disney did such a hard sell of the whole woke thing that it's like, no, you're Disney. You're supposed to be showing us, fun movies with animals and things and cartoons and whatnot to make us happy and we enjoy our lives more. And in fact, I want nothing to do with Disney anymore. I just don't. It's just like, you want to get the Disney Channel? No, I don't. Yeah, it's just, they've gone in a direction that I can't get behind. And I know they're trying to get back a little bit, but then they had that whole thing with Florida. And most of the stuff that I see happening with the governor of Florida and Disney, it's because he sees shenanigans that Disney shouldn't be getting away with. And we're going to talk about some of those shenanigans today. We're going to talk about some of the changes that Disney made to make them so woke that I think has really impacted them. Let's be honest. The 7,000 people that are being, let off, that's not all just because Disney went woke. There's other business stuff going on there. You're going to go through ups and downs and ebbs and flows in business. And right now we're at one where we're laying people off. I've been covering Walmart like there's no tomorrow, closing stuff down. It's along the same lines. We're in a little bit of an economic pullback because we had the huge go-go years of COVID. You've got this, people don't know whether they're coming or going. Right now, they are going at Disney. Let's jump on into it. Let's see what we've got going on. Walt Disney has begun its planned layoff of 7,000 employees, with the first round of cuts having started Monday, a couple of days ago. The axed positions represent 4.2% of Disney's 166,000 US-based employees. So not a huge number, but in terms of raw numbers, 7,000 people getting the whack. Yeah, that's a big cut. I've been following, Amazon laying off 20,000 people, Facebook, Microsoft laying off a few hundred there. It's happening all over. You've got cuts being made. And unfortunately, Disney really went hard on stuff for people are kind of pulling back from, should we really be engaging with the company that does that kind of craziness? Now, if you're, fully on, supportive of the whole woke thing, then Disney's your company. Disney is your company. Because, they made some changes and I'm like, what? You're just basically erasing history. In order to figure out where you're going, you got to understand where you've been. And if you erase everything, let's get rid of all those statues. Don't need those. Yeah, not relevant to history. Well, they were history and you're getting rid of them. Yeah, it's like we got rid of, Minnie Mouse's dress and you gave her a pantsuit. Ugh. Bob Iger, Disney CEO, first announced the job cuts in a February earnings call. The 7,000 layoffs comprise 30% of $2.5 billion that Disney plans to save in non-content costs. So Disney is, a massive conglomerate. It's got all kinds of stuff. It's got, Disney World and Disneyland and, all this content they're putting out. And companies that put out content, I mean, look at CNN as a perfect example of a company that was doing okay. And then they lost they lost Trump. Trump didn't get reelected. They had nothing because they were a crap on Trump, company. You might say they had a little bit of news in there, but calling what CNN does as news is a stretch at best. I used to watch a lot of Wolf Blitzer back in the day, right? I mean, that was who you watched. He didn't have any other 24/7 news content. So he was always off in some, burning up, desert type location covering whatever wars it was. It doesn't feel like we get that. We certainly don't get that from CNN. We get a bunch of opinion pieces on how crappy Trump was, which, if that's your thing, if that's what you enjoy, okay. But what is super interesting is people are watching Fox a lot. They're not watching CNN. There's some other, entertainment companies doing pretty darn well. Disney, they're doing a little pullback. They're doing a little wacky whack of their employees, right? In a memo sent Monday, Mr. Iger explained the situation to employees, noting that the cuts are projected to be finished by the end of spring. Leaders will be communicating the news directly to the first group of impacted employees over the next 4 days. A second, larger round of notifications will happen in April with several thousand more staff. Disney is a huge company. And, when you've got this number, this sheer magnitude of people, it's a big story. That's a big story. Again, Disney isn't the only one. Now, but I hold Disney up as a perfect example of a lot of this could have been avoided, because you don't need to rock the boat with all this woke crap. You don't need to be the headliner out there, right? You just don't. Be respectful to people, do what you got to do, but you don't have to go overboard and pretend like you're single-handedly going to change the face of racism through your movies. But that's kind of what Disney went after. And maybe they're trying to make up for the fact that their founder, Walt Disney, he had some issues towards certain groups of folks, right? He needed a big box of tissues for all of his issues. Is this the end of Disney's awakening? As Brooklyn Beckham's billionaire dad-in-law fights to restore the magic at the company, Female reveals the many controversial woke changes it has made, from banning gendered greetings to Minnie Mouse's pantsuit. You can't say hello, boys and girls, anymore. You can't. No, can't go. You're better off saying, hello, people. Hello, Disney consumers. Welcome to Disney today. Don't say boys and girls, because you might misgender somebody. How about like that killer, that cold-blooded killer in Tennessee, that trans individual, man, woman, whatever you want to call them. I mean, they were born a biological female and then they transitioned. I don't know. Did they even transition? Man, I was watching some of the footage yesterday of the police officers going in, took him, her, whatever, they, them out, right? That is some incredible footage. Police did their job. They took out a cold-blooded killer. And you know what the stories from the media were? Yeah. It was like, you misgendered that person. You misgendered the cold-blooded killer. We can't have that, because they don't want to focus on the fact that you got a far left extremist transgender individual. And that's been an ongoing theme, hasn't it? All right. You got this mass shooting, transgender. You got this mass shooting, non-binary. Got a lot of folks out there with some real mental issues, don't you? Because there's no way you can look at transgender murderer here in Tennessee and not say, hey, that person's got some mental issues. You go in and take some people out, including 3 9-year-old children. Ugh, not good. Not good. So somebody needs to do some counseling there. But no, that's not what we're doing. We're saying, hey, go out and get a sex change. It'll all be good. It'll work out. You'll be fine. It'll be good. Yeah, it's the whole woke thing. It's just like, support everybody. Everybody's inclusive. We're all good. Yeah, until we're not. And then you got that whole thing going on. Yeah, corporate's reaction to that storyline was shocking to me. It was shocking because they didn't want to, get into the actual reality, which is guns aren't really killing people. Yeah, they're shooting the bullets, but who's pulling those triggers? You need to look at the mental health of those folks. That's what you need to do. But we don't want to do that. We just want to rein in guns from, law-abiding citizens because, yeah, that's what we want to blame it on. Disney has taken numerous strides to become more inclusive in recent years, changing park policy to stop staff from using gendered greetings, implementing an anti-racism training course for employees, mainly white ones, giving old characters progressive makeovers. Do we really need that? I mean, if there was something wildly racist, really overtly racist, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not appropriate anymore. Yeah, we've moved on from that, but you don't eradicate the whole thing, right? You just don't, because history is history. Hey, that's where we were. Kind of want to stay away from that because that doesn't really help anybody out. But to just, hit the eject button on all this stuff and removing offensive imagery from rides and movies. However, some people feel that the company has gone too far in its woke changes. I would be one of those people. When people say, oh, I've got the Disney Network, Disney Plus, I'm like, why? And they just look at me like, oh, it's great content. Okay. Yeah, well, this stuff, though, I can't get past this stuff, right? And while many have praised the company, which was previously known for including numerous racist undertones, well, they weren't racist at the time. They were just what society deemed normal. So I probably wouldn't go there, and especially on some of the changes that Disney made. It's a stretch to call some of those overtly racist, because I don't think they were. I think it's just, and you might say, well, Sean, that is racism at its core. But nobody took some of this stuff as, okay, you don't like this group of individuals as evidenced by this. It was just, hey, things were a little different back then. So, and offensive stereotypes in its old movies, like a crow in Dumbo, portrayed by a white actor who spoke in an African-American sounding voice named Jim Crow, for its change of direction. The question has lingered in recent months if they had taken it too far. Now, was that an overt example of racism? I don't think so. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Is that just wildly overt racism? I mean, I'm trying to be objective here, right? As the debate continues, Female has taken a look back at the woke changes it's implemented recently, from dressing Minnie Mouse in a pantsuit to slapping a racism warning before their old movies. Disney movies are getting a racism warning. All right, so here's Minnie Mouse in her pantsuit. We don't need that. That's not Minnie Mouse. That's not good. That's what? Why? Why did you have to mess with that? Here's Minnie Mouse. That's Minnie Mouse. That's Minnie Mouse. Some of this stuff, we don't need to change it. It's fine. Nobody's asking for it to be changed. Disney, you're just going down that road of, if a little bit of woke is good, then a lot of woke is great. You know, we got same-sex characters kissing each other left and right. Hey, that type of situation is part of society. But do you need to highlight that in kids' movies? I don't think you need to highlight sex between two heterosexual people either. Leave that alone. You don't need that. That's not part of a kids have enough issues just trying to grow up, right? Yeah. I raised two boys, one of which is no longer with us, but I got them to age 27, and I always look back and go, the boys were hard at different levels, but girls, they hit those teenage years. Ooh, yeah. Tricky. If you're raising teenage girls, I think you know what I mean. Because I've just had glimpses of it from friends, daughters, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I'd be able to deal with that on a very logical basis. Hey, what are you doing? That's kind of my parenting style. What the F are you doing? No, you can't do that. No. Just yelling at girls. That's not going to work. Yeah. It worked with my boys though, because they understood where the line was, and you got to draw that line, because otherwise they're just all over the place, and kids need guidance, but they don't need the guidance that Disney's trying to give them, which is, just go out, do whatever you want. It's all good. I mean, these are kids' movies. Disneyland Paris unveiled the iconic character's new outfit via Twitter, announcing that Minnie had undergone the high fashion makeover in honor of its 30th anniversary. Don't rock the boat. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? So Minnie Mouse getting a makeover. She didn't need a makeover. Her outfit was fine. That's what we identified Minnie Mouse as. So this article went on and they covered that a lot. The Walt Disney Corporation claims that America is founded on systemic racism and encourages employees to complete a white privilege checklist and separates minorities into racially segregated affinity groups. This literally came up, and it's like, this was May of 2021, implementing a new anti-racism training course for its park employees. Was this requested by somebody? Did somebody say, hey, this is what we should be doing? I don't think so. I think they just kind of took it on their own. So here's part of that. Racism course. Do not question or debate Black colleagues' lived experience. For example, are you sure they meant it that way? Question mark. It's not a race thing, or I'm playing devil's advocate. Instead, reserve judgment and offer statements of validation if someone shares their experience. I mean, yeah, that's kind of common sense, but to have to put people through, just straight up race training. Acknowledge and listen with empathy when Black colleagues share their lived experience. Avoid saying, I feel you, I have been there, and instead say, I hear you. Tell me more about what that felt like. That's kind of just general, empathy towards your human being, whether they're Black or not. Somebody has a tough experience. You hear it out. You're like, that sucks. Sorry that happened to you. I'd say that to anybody, whether they're whatever, but to single out Black people, avoid conflating the Black experience with other communities of color. While other people of color are subject to racism, there is a unique history that has led to anti-Black racism and the ways in which that shows up. So they're saying that the racism towards Black people is specific, and you don't want to conflate that with racism towards, any other culture. I kind of feel like the best way to get past this is to not treat anybody differently and just hammer down, we all go. But we're not doing that, are we? We're identifying everything and giving people training. I didn't know I was racist. I didn't know I needed training. I guess I do. If Disney says I do, then I must be racist. There's a lot of that going on, and we're not going to get past this till we just kind of treat everybody the same. If you treat everybody poorly, at least you treat everybody poorly. If you're, you know what I mean? So there was another article in here, another comment in here that was pretty darn funny. And they took out some, the Jungle Cruise. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean were deemed racist. We just had all kinds of stuff. We changed up, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We can't have that because, you can't talk about dwarfs. You got to say vertically challenged people, right? And you got to come up with something. So do you remember Peter Dinklage? He was from Game of Thrones. He was the vertically challenged individual who was pretty damn funny, and he was really smart, and he just weaved his way throughout the narrative of the story. He banged a lot of chicks, which, given his horizontally challenged position, you might say, hey, he's a go-getter. But of course it's fiction, right? It's fiction, but he had a lot of activity going on in that show, and it was really entertaining. I like that part of the writing. But he said, he called out the contradiction between the studio's decision to cast Latina West Side Story breakout star Rachel Zegler as Snow White. So took a Latina instead of a white individual, Snow White, while still moving forward with a movie about a backward story that focuses on the seven dwarves. Literally, no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback when they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the seven dwarfs, Peter said. Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, and you're still making that effing backward story about seven dwarfs living in a cave together. What the F are you doing, man? I thought he's pointing out the obvious, right? He is pointing out the obvious of we're going one direction here, but then we're trying to go over here. And I think it just points out all the more that what you're doing is just a huge virtue signaling. That's what you got going on. Because nobody's asking you to do this. I don't think anybody's requesting that Disney, review all this stuff. And oh my gosh, we got racism. Well, I think some of the stuff that we're looking at in Disney's movies, yeah, you wouldn't film that today. But I don't think you look back and go, oh my word, we can't let our children see that. You just explain to them, that's a little off kilter, but things were different back then, and things were different back then. It's like Bill Burr does a bit where he Yeah, they're remaking old movies like Aladdin. You had a bunch of the song lyrics to the beginning of the Aladdin movie had to be changed. We couldn't have something. But Bill Burr does a bit where he talks about you get so old at some point that you just say wrong things. You just say wrong things. And he used the example of the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, talking about how he didn't want his girlfriend showing images of a certain race on her Instagram account. Didn't want that happening. And he said it was the most limited scope racism ever. You can do it everywhere else, but don't do it on Instagram. Don't post anything on Instagram. And this is a guy that's like 80 something years old. And Bill Burr's point is, what used to happen was totally okay. Doesn't mean it was right, but there was a lot of stuff, things that people said, things that now are innuendo. A TV reporter just recently got fired from a news station because she quoted Snoop Dogg. She didn't really know. I didn't know it up until this, but it was shizzle my word that rhymes with shizzle that starts with N, which is a slang term for the N word. I didn't know that. I've said that many times, but I didn't mean it as a racist term. You know what I mean? And she got fired. No, she shouldn't have been fired. She should have been given the chance to apologize and say, hey, I had no idea. I was just quoting Snoop Dogg. He's friends with Martha Stewart. They say stuff. But, if you're white, you can't get away with that. You shouldn't say it. It's like a white person should never say the N word ever, even if with an A at the end. No, hard no go. Just don't do it. It's not going to work out. Remember when Dog the Bounty Hunter? I know I follow a lot of really epic TV. I watched a lot of Dog the Bounty Hunter. Yes, because it's entertaining. It's, let's see if Dog catches this guy this time. They always do. Because if they didn't, it wouldn't be Dog the Bounty Hunter. It'd be Dog the, endlessly chasing somebody he never catches guy. But he, at one point in time, he tried to excuse using the N-word because of his experience in prison. He was up on manslaughter charges, something pretty hardcore. And then he turned his life around and became Dog the Bounty Hunter. And he tried to use the excuse of, well, the black dudes that I hung out with in prison, they said that I could use the N-word. Everybody else is like, no, you can't do that. No, that's a hard no-go. So I think people know when things are racist and when they're not. And I think people know when the whole woke thing goes a little too far. Disney has gone way too far, in my opinion. And then with the current storylines really honing in on like same sex, whatever, and that kind of stuff. I'm like, you know what? You don't have to do the heterosexual thing. You don't have to go ham with that either. Just show a kid's movie, make it, accessible for all. Don't put the cringe factor in there for everybody. I know where you're going. You're trying to make this okay. All right. We get it. Yeah. But maybe not in a kid's movie. That's kind of my thing, right? Let's leave the kids' movies alone. But then a lot of parents would say, hey, these were never made for kids. These were made for adults. I'm like, okay. Yeah, that's true. But if you see Disney, when I raised my kids in the 90s and 2000s, Disney was fair game. You'd go to Disney. Now, I would probably do some research on whether it was appropriate to take my grandkid, which I hope I have sooner than later. Come on, Karen, you can do it. You can do it. I would probably research the storyline of a Disney movie before I went, because I don't want my grandkids seeing stuff that I deem to be inappropriate. And that's my call. And I think there's also a lot of folks out there who have done the same thing. I know that, governor of Florida has done the same thing. And, here we are. So Disney laying off 7,000 people. It's not shocking, but it's also part of a bigger, there's stuff going on in the entertainment industry as well. And we also, let's be honest, I wanted to take a crap on Disney because I don't really like Disney. That's fair enough. It's my podcast. I can do what I want. So, bringing up 7,000, go woke, go broke. Yeah, a little bit. But there's also, everybody ramped up so hard during the pandemic that now you're seeing the flip side to that. Amazon being a perfect example, brought on thousands of people during the pandemic because Disney creating all kinds of content during the pandemic, or releasing it, whatever, because all eyes were glued. Didn't Disney bring out their Disney Plus network sometime right around then? Everybody's gone to their Plus network, right? Which is the paid subscription. I have a Plus network. It's called Reasonable Plus, but it's on Discord because we do everything a little bit backwards here, and it's a channel and it's free. So if you want to check that out, that's fine. All right. That's enough of me ragging on Disney. I hope you enjoyed this segment. If you did, share the content. Hit that little share. It's that thing that goes kind of like this. And that's the share icon. You could take one and share it to not one, but two people. That's the thing, right? That's the symbol. Share that content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Thanks in advance. Thanks for watching this video. Bye for now.